Okay, it's the end of the session. That was Meekah, and this is Meekah's roadmap to success. Her dog bed's normally in the corner. She just went there because the myelin sheath over her neural pathways has her going over there. So remember, come up with a command word for the dog bed. So every time she goes to the dog bed, say the command word. If you have a treat, it's better to give her the treat and say beach, or whatever the word is you want to use. If you can't, you can just come over and pet her and say beach. If you don't have a treat, but you want to go over there, if you're watching it, you're comfortable on the couch, she goes over there, just say the word beach. We just want to create that association through classical conditioning. All right, so this is her roadmap to success. She literally, I just found out, has been rescued. Her guardian saved her from being killed because she was adopted, or she was purchased through Tully's Kennels, who purchases dogs from puppy mills. And I have rescued dogs out of puppy mills. It's a horrible experience. The last one I went to, the kennels weren't even tall enough for the dogs to sit up properly. They were little rabbit hutches. So if you buy a dog from a pet store, that's what they're hoping is you're going, I'm going to rescue and get him out of there. Yep, and you're paying money so that other dogs can suffer. I hate to say it, but the guardian here didn't do that. They were going to euthanize her because she has some hip dysplasia. And so they weren't going to make good money, so they'd rather just euthanize. So this is why you should adopt and not shop. There's nothing wrong with getting puppies. I teach puppy classes, but she's a great dog. She's smart. She learns things. She's there's no reason for that. So, all right, off my soapbox, let me get to what we were going through here. So basically, we went over, because she has some hip dysplasia, we went over some creative ways of exercising her, getting a snuffle mat. The guardian here is the first person I've ever met who didn't know what Snuffleupagus was. But basically, snuffle mat, you can go to Amazon or Chewy, and from what I understand, Danielle over at Barks and Brews, which is a dog daycare facility, actually has the materials for you to do it DIY. So you might want to talk to them about possibly coming in there and doing one there if you're into DIY stuff. So a snuffle mat is basically, it looks like a floor mat with shag carpet on steroids. And the dog, you put their food in it and shake it in. So the dog has to use its nose to find the kibble, then move it to the side, and then lick it up. And that slows down the eating process. It also helps the dog's confidence because she's earning her affection. She's using her nose, which controls 60% of her brain, which is physically draining. And it's also very satisfying. So you get like a 4-for-1 teaching using a snuffle mat. I also showed the guardian how to use a treat dispensing ball. I use an Omega treat ball. I recommend you probably get both of those, and I would probably feed maybe part of her meal out of the Omega treat ball, and then once she's eaten that, get the rest out of her bowl, and then the other meal, feed her out of the snuffle mat. So switch them up. Sometimes snuffle mat in the evening, sometimes in the morning. But these are nice ways where it doesn't take a lot of time and energy from the human, but it's a nice way to benefit the dog in multiple ways. Now, she is a very picky eater. So the guardian actually goes to our favorite store, the Green Spot, and gets a combination of 4 different types of food, and she still is aloof about it. Probably because it's there too accessible. In the wild, dogs spend 90% of their time looking for food. And when they do kill or capture something, or scavenge, they eat in the order of their rank. So it's always important for us as humans that we eat a little something before we feed them. It doesn't have to be a real meal. 5 bites of a chip or cracker will work. Now, because the food is down all the time, she's been conditioned to not think about that super important. So basically, there are probably times where she's like, oh, I'll eat later on. Then she goes and eats, and she sees the guardian eat. Well, then I ate before the guardian. And over time, that can be one of those subtle ways that tells the dog that I'm in charge of the human, which I think is a little bit of what's going on here. So what you want to do is put food in her bowl, and then invite her to come and eat it. And don't doctor it up with the extra meat and all that fun stuff. And if she doesn't come over within about 1 minute, I pick up the bowl, I dump it empty, and I put the empty bowl back down. I want the empty bowl on the floor so that every time the dog walks by, it recognizes there's no food in the bowl. That way, twice a day for 60 seconds, when there is food in the bowl, that's a very precious, valuable thing, and that will get her spiked into going and eating the food when you provide the food. If she goes longer than 3 days without feeding, it probably means your roommate is feeding her a little something. Don't cheat. Hunger becomes your ally. So basically, once you get to the point where she's eating on a regular basis, that's when I would switch over to the snuffle mat and the Omega treat ball. And those are not the only ones. There's a big Kong that they have to wobble, and they can get treats out of that. There's a whole bunch of puzzles and games that you can use, and it also helps with their problem solving, and that can help with their confidence as well. So look into some of those things as well, because there's, again, with the hip dysplasia, it's just a nice way to get her some energy and confidence, and do it kind of under the guise of just feeding her. All right, let me see. We also talked about rules. For dogs, they don't have a lot of rules. They see us as peers. If they see us as peers, and listening becomes optional. So some of the rules we went over, you have to sit before I'm going to let you out the door. You have to sit, actually you have to lay down before I let you out of the kennel. If you forget how to do the kennel exercise, go to doggoneproblems.com, click on dog training tips. In the search box on the right side of the page, at the bottom of the page, type in Ray, like the Star Wars character, R-E-Y. And there's a German Shepard that I did the kennel exercise with. You'll be able to watch all the ins and outs. I would always let her out of the kennel that way. I would have your roommate always let her out of the kennel that way. Eventually it gets to the point where you come and open the door and walk away, and she stays in there until you call her out. So if you want to assign a command word, be consistent. So call it vacation or holiday or liberty or whatever you want to say. When she comes out to you, you give her that treat, you say vacation. And I mean, holiday, probably, whatever words you want to use. You say blue, but I like to use words that are kind of slang and in context. Remember, dogs are the only animal that can read a human facial expression besides humans. So I'd like you to put an emphasis on coming up with funny command words. I'm going to give you a list of some of them to work on right now. You need a word for the dog bed. You need a word for the dog kennel. You need a word for the dog eating their food. And for the kennel, going into the kennel, you need a word, but I'd also come up with a release word. So come up with those, and also if you're teaching new tricks and commands, come up with a funny command word. My little dog Max, I taught him how to crawl on his belly, like army crawl, and I was like, well, I need a unique word. I came up with worm. But worm is not very funny, so I changed it to sneaky. So I say sneaky, he drops on the ground, and people laugh their ass off. So come up with these fun command words. It's a nice way to help the dog kind of see that this is something that pleases my humans. Most of us do a really poor job of communicating what we actually want from our dog. Remember, any interaction with your dog is validating. So if your dog is licking your roommate's water or a glass of water and you chastise the dog or correct the dog, that was attention, and that's a positive to dogs. So we went over passive training and petting with a purpose to try to give the dog an idea of what we want the dog to do. So petting with a purpose is the dog comes up and nudges you, it's telling you what to do. Leaders tell, followers ask. So next time she nudges you, give her a counter order, tell her to sit. If she sits in 3 seconds, pet her under her chin and say the word sit once, and then pet her as much or as little as you want. If she doesn't sit, show her you got other things going on. Playing hard to get works great for dogs. It also works great for dating. I say that in the reverse order, but either one works fine. So basically, if you pet her, even if she doesn't comply, then she has no motivation to listen to you. And for a couple of days, this is going to become a test of wills. No, you're going to pet me anyways. Oh, shoot, she's not petting me. Blue shirt man came, and suddenly now things are different. Yeah, you have to earn that affection. That makes it more valuable. That also increases the respect for the human as an authority figure. It also helps her practice sitting and laying down. Don't practice the shake for that. So after a while, she'll come start sitting in front of you to prepay for the attention. When she does that, make sure you reach under her, and whenever possible, pet her under her chin. Now you can scratch her side and her flank and everywhere else. Avoid patting over the head because that creates that down nose orientation. And say just sit, not good sit. Use the watchword of paycheck. So if you come in the room, you see your roommate's petting and she's standing up, you say paycheck. Even if your roommate did it right, she should stop petting, tell her to sit. If she sits, we pet her on her chin, say sit, and it says, actually I asked her to sit before you came in. When you came down the stairs, she stood up. But that's just a nice watchword to help us remember. Passive training is basically the easiest way to train every dog, which is really the flip side of that coin for petting with a purpose. Passive training is rewarding the dog for the things that you like when the dog does them on their own. So every time she comes to you, you should pet her and say come. Every time she sits, you should pet her and say sit, again under the chin. Every time she lays down, crash or chill are the fun words we use. If there's a word that you could say and she does it, use that word. When she eats her food, call it barbecue. When she drinks her water, call it Merlot. So name all these individual toys. Call this something funny for a yellow ducky. So if you come up with these funny command words, it just creates that positivity, and it lets the dog know these are things my human really likes, and I know that my human likes them because she always gives me attention when I do these things. Most of us train our dogs to misbehave. This is a great way to train them to behave. Now, getting back to rules, I guess I left off that a little bit. I would make sure that she sits before you let her out the door, which I talked about. And when you do that, go to the door, tell her to sit one time. If she doesn't sit, drop the leash, walk away, sit down, and wait 1 minute. After 1 minute, go and set a timer if you can. Go back there and make sure you're seated. Go back there after 1 minute, command her to sit again, don't ask. And she has, again, 3 seconds. If she doesn't sit with the third second, walk away. This time, sit down for 2 minutes. Next time, sit down for 4 minutes, then 8 minutes. Keep doubling the length of time. I don't want to go outside, you do. You want to go outside, you got to pay for it. You got to pay for it through the smallest thing you could possibly do as a dog and sit down. And if you can't be bothered to sit, hey, I can't be bothered to open that door. But man, as soon as that you sit, that door flies open so fast you can't believe it. So after a while, she'll go sit as her way of saying, I'd like to go out the door. But when you go to the door, she'll sit down automatically. And kind of a little bit of a riff what we did with the kennel. Let me see. Other rules: she shouldn't be within about 6 or 7 feet of anybody who's eating or when we're preparing food in the kitchen. She doesn't really do those things, so I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. I would get the X mats. She should not be allowed on any furniture other than the bed that you only let her in when you invite her. And no other furniture for at least 3 months, if not longer. I usually say it's 90 days or as long as the problems are still going on. And so I would also go to Carpetland and get yourself a couple of nice pieces of carpet. I think that she really doesn't like sitting and laying down on the carpet and interacting. There were a couple exercises, remember, if we had problems with, because I think of the hardwood floor. So especially with the dog with hip dysplasia, that's also more of a factor. So yes, sweetheart. All right, so remember, if she's nervous and you pet her when she's nervous, you'll make her more nervous. So if she's nervous, you can lay your hand on her, and they do associate that touch with affection, but as soon as you start petting her, you're gonna make her more nervous. Something I was actually gonna remind my apprentice Taylor to go over that I forgot, is we call it a settle exercise. So when she's nice and relaxed in this sort of mood, and you wanna pet her and say, you're such a good girl. Well, she's like, well, you say I'm such a good girl when I poop, when I pee, when I eat, when I sleep, when I come to you, when I lay down, when I chew it means everything. Doesn't mean any one specific thing. Well, if she's like this, you pet her and say, settle, or zen, or chill, or chillaxing, whatever word you want to use, you're putting it in context. She is chilling out right now. You want to pet her from the base, nape of her neck to the base of her tail in slow strokes, 12 inches for every 1 second. So you only say it maybe once or twice, settle, is the word I use. Then you can keep on petting her as much as you want. But you're just putting things in context so she understands it. I actually say the command word twice. If I tell it, so when she does that, use that passive training. Call it nuzzles or whatever you want to say. She seems to want to scratch or lick or, condition. Again, it's just a repeating action. So basically, I always say a command word twice. So if I tell the dog to sit, that's during what I call the command stage. Sit. Well, actually, lay down and be quiet. See how good I am? So I say sit. When the dog sits, I pet under the chin to facilitate that nose up orientation we talked about earlier, and I say the word sit a second time. Remember, anytime you're going to pet your dog or ask her to do something, think of it as a mini job, and your petting or the treat is the payment for that job. So let the dog know why I'm paying you. Sit. The dog sits. I pet under the chin and say sit a second time. If I say sit and the dog doesn't sit, I'm not going to repeat it. Remember, the more you say it, the less you mean it. The dog just doesn't get the privilege of my attention or my affection or the treat. Longing for that long enough will motivate her to want to do the things that you want her to do. Now, one of the things the guardians noticed is in the house, she listens pretty well. Outside, she doesn't. So we went over a couple self-control exercises and some attention exercises. One of the ones we went over is a focus exercise. Also go to Dog Training Tips, click and type in focus. There's a bunch of videos for that. The first stage is to practice all over the house, 1 second in your nose, 1 second in her mouth. And by the time you see this is old, practice when I leave those treats with you. I'd practice that a couple more times a day so that you really want to jumpstart because we had such difficulty getting her to focus. So at first it's 1 second, 1 second. And make sure you go up to your nose really fast. Don't give yourself a bloody nose, but go up quick and then start gradually elongating it. So at first it's 1 second up and then 1 second to the dog's nose. Then eventually it's 2 seconds to the dog's nose, but always 1 second up to your nose. And eventually you want to get to within 7 days, 1 second up, 15 seconds to the nose without her jumping for it. The video on the website was going to explain all the rest of the ins and outs, but you want to practice in the house within 7 days, get to a 15-second focus anywhere. Next stage is to do it maybe outside your backyard when there's not a lot of distractions, but just being outside is enough distraction. So we go back to 1 second, 1 second, and eventually you would practice on a walk, and the video will kind of explain it in more detail. We also went over leave it exercise and and a drop command. Practice the drop. Anytime she has one of her toys out, quietly pull a treat out of your pocket and just have it hold. And then when she's got it in her mouth, go over there, hold it in front of her nose. As soon as she drops it, pop it in her mouth and say drop, and then don't show any interest in the object. Eventually, if you say drop it, she'll spit anything out right away for you. The leave it command is, again, there's a video for that. Practice that one as well. And again, once she gets good at it, which she seems to be pretty smart, Go to Lowe's or Home Depot and have your roommate go and drop treats, or teach her to stay and then make it a 2-for-1. Stay and then go drop treats on the trail yourself while she's practicing staying. Go back and get her, and as you're approaching it, she looks at it, you say, leave it, she looks up at you, and the treat comes from above for leaving something down below. So that'll also be something you can use with the water glass that she likes to lick for your roommate, or anything on a walk. Now remember, on a walk, if she is what we call above threshold, she's really animated, she's not going to listen to you. At that point, don't practice doing don't try to use the focus or anything else. Just move her as far away as you can until you can get her to sit or lie down and be interested in treats. If she won't sit, lie down, or isn't interested in treats, you're still too close or she's still too worked up. Now, when she is excited, make sure we don't pet her. Anything your dog is doing when you pet it is what you're specifically amplifying or rewarding. So if you pet a dog that's excited, you're gonna make her more excited. Now, also remember that anything that she does in your presence that you don't disagree with is, as far as she's concerned, your way of saying, I'm okay with that. So make sure you speak up and disagree for anything that she does that you don't like right away within that 3-second window. Use the maintenance that we talked about, especially because of your proximity in the city. You got a lot of stimulus right outside your place. Get that like paper, cut it out. Now I would probably do it about 80% up on the lower pane of those windows. And I would do it for those two as well, because she'll eventually start going over there as well. Do it on the inside of the pane, and all those windows the same consistency. And get the X mats for the couch. Those are about $11 a piece on Amazon. If you have to get 5 of them, probably the max you need to get. So it's about $55-$60, but it just really makes it a lot easier for you. It's worth the investment. The paper, you want to leave that up about 4 months as well. And and it's only covering the bottom part of the window, so we can still see. But after 4 months, then take it off. When you start taking it off, take off that furthest window first. Wait a couple weeks. If she does good, take it off that one. Then that one, that one, that one. And right about the time when you have none of those, then you'll move to a new place and you can do it all over again. But it's just temptation. We just don't want her to get in the habit of doing that. Let me see. I think that's about it. Is there anything else? This is a really weird session for me. I went a lot faster than I normally do, but I think I pretty much covered everything. Now, if you do have any questions or problems, please make sure you let me know. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. Well, this is Meekah, and this is Meekah's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.